Hey there and welcome. My name is Carlos Bertz and we are here to keep you well informed about the indie tabletop RPG scene. Perhaps you can start your Friday or even your weekend keeping you well informed. Since it's still February, we are continuing to talk about ZineQuest, including and featuring an amazing interview with Ben, also known as Pandatheist on Twitter, that has been keeping a blog post about ZineQuest since its second iteration. So let us review some stats of ZineQuest this year, because it has been the biggest pusher in the indie market at the moment. The good thing is that before mid-February, ZineQuest had beat more than $1 million. Although this video is being recorded barely past mid-Feb, this value of $1 million is encompassing close to 200 projects, from which at least 82% are funded, a percentage that I would want to go up, but it hinges on you as well. Among these projects that I believe that still deserve an extra push, an extra look before they are closed, I will cite one from RPG Latam, led project that is funded and seems to be in my line, that is Noctis Labyrinth. It is a no-prep adventure to delve into a red desert. Also, they just released a second module for free that you can find in the description and decide by yourself. The next one is The Depth of This Force. It's led by Ursidice, so no RPG Latam related. The project is already funded, but at these dire times, we all need a new extra solo game perhaps, and it is surreal solo journaling and exploration through the underworld of the ocean forest. So plenty of space to know more about yourself. And another one is Krieg Messa, which can be quickly described as Troika in an apocalyptic long 16th century, and it's close to last week of funding. All the links will be in the description if you want to check them out, and I strongly believe that you should. So it seems that we have plenty of big and amazing projects for ZineQuest 3 this year's edition, but there were also some reports of a drove in a plethora of creators outside of Kickstarter. So in a way, it seems that plenty of expenditures are concentrated in one platform and are the projects in the Kickstarter. In a way, some debate is starting to arise if this model of ZineQuest is something sustainable for small publishers in the long run. However, it is an interesting and important conversation that needs to be done, and we will see more how it develops in the future. Okay, now moving on from being the big name of February, I need to apologize because last time I talked about folklore from the gem from Mark Borg, and I actually said 10 days. Still, it starts, and it was 10 hours. So it already started. You have time to submit until March. The link will be in the description again. And so if you want to design something for Mark Borg, this is the perfect opportunity. This week, we also had Dicebreaker, the blog mentioning the indie scene, as they had an article titled "Indie RPGs Show Role-Playing Can and Should Be More Than Dungeons & Dragons." I am happy that big platforms are starting to publish more about indie games, tabletop RPG in general, but more indie games, and I hope that it keeps up. Something that we knew already, like that we can have more than the Dungeons and Dragons in the tabletop RPG scene, but it is nice to be recognized. We had also the announcement in RPG Latam scene of a game called Symphony of the Devil. And it's a laser and feelings hack about revenge, and that has some breathtaking aesthetics. It's really, really so damn good. You can see an image here, but it's something that it deserves to be searched and expected. And in RPGC, on the other hand, we had the big thing of the week, that was Our Shores. Their campaign Kickstarter is funded, and they reached more than 900 backers and $37,000. So it's finished, it's closed with very good numbers. And I'm so happy, and I hope that this kind of tendency goes on. Also, the day this video is being recorded, the new tabletop manager for Polygon is starting, with the promise of covering a lot more of tabletop games. Indies were not mentioned in terms, but we can only be hopeful, right? So, Charlie Hall, we are counting on you, and please do not betray our expectations of having more indie games as well. And last but not least, There is a Cosmic Horror Tabletop RPG jam going on right now. So if this is your jam, I do not regret it. So if it's your jam, check it out. So let's head to our interview. So, as I mentioned, we are here with Pandatheist, as he's known in Twitter, but we'll be calling him Ben, which is his first name, because it's easier for me. And in my previous video, we talked about his blog post where he's keeping updates about all the projects in ZenQuest. And then I saw that recently he just updated it, and we are now with something around 240, 250 projects live, and we are still hitting something around the 80% funded ones. So at first, I guess the first idea is, what motivated you to start putting this post and updating it regularly? Like, what put you on this spot, and what motivated you to start with that?
Yeah, I started last year because I was just trying to figure out what I was going to buy. And at some point, when you have an Excel sheet for yourself and a bunch of friends with 100 items, you figure might as well share. And then once I put it online, I figured if I'm already tracking, these things, what would people find useful? So I started adding PDF versus print amounts, and people asked me for end dates, so I started adding those, and it just kind of spiraled from there.
Yeah, because I saw that apart from just a list with every project, you have some kind of statistics about how many projects are funded above some level, how many projects are funded by number of people, and so on. And so uh, the kind of ideas that you took for taking these stats were like, most of them were requests from people, or you just thought that they
Um,
would
some was requests, some was things I just thought would be useful or interesting. There's a lack of useful data to creators for what do I do, or how do I make things, or what's going on in the industry. And I just thought some people might find it useful if you have a better idea of what's going on. There's always a lot of anxiety when people are launching Kickstarters, like, is this going to fund? Um, am I doing it right? What could I have done better? I see people who I know are going to succeed, who are popular in our little circle, who are still worried and anxious. And I thought, if I can do my little part to help make them feel better, or make the experience a little easier, then
yeah.
do
And
what I can.
since you mentioned that you started using, you started completing it last year, how are you feeling this year in terms of, is it easier for you to do it this year since you already did something in the past one? And how you are feeling ZineQuest as the project from Kickstarter, if it's more projects, less projects, and so on?
So as far as my personal workload, it's about the same. I think I might have given myself more work this year for some of the things I'm doing. I really need to figure out how to automate some of the things I've been doing to save myself some time. But as far as Kickstarter and ZineQuest in general, it's on track to be much larger than last year. I think last year was, I could check, but I think it was around 284 projects. And we were at, let's see here, like 245 the other day. And I think there's been another, 5, 10 since then. So we're gonna at halfway through the month pass last year's totals. Same with money. I think we're pretty close. I think last year was a little over 850,000, and this year we were already, I think last time I looked was around 785, somewhere in there. So I mean, it's going to be a much larger. Uh,
Yeah, what in certain ways it can be even kind of surprising, because last year, since it's always in February, we were not still in pandemic mode, while this year we had already pandemic. It's still occurring in most places, and then for me it's kind of surprising that we put it much bigger one. even more that last year it was not the first year that Kickstarter did it. Like it was the second one, so it was not just because it was too new. But it's nice to see that we have so many new projects and that we are still going bigger this year. And from the projects that you are tracking, which are the ones that are calling most of your attention, or perhaps not project by name, but what are the kind of things that you look for in a project in ZineQuest, so in order to back or even in order to recommend?
I mean, what's the saying? My eyes are bigger than my stomach, right? There's a lot more stuff that I'm interested in than I can possibly afford. And frankly, I've been playing long enough that I'm familiar with my own taste, and there's a lot of really good stuff that just isn't necessarily for me. So I try and retweet anything I see that's interesting, which is a lot of stuff. It's a really exciting, really interesting year. Um, as far as the stuff that I've been backing for myself, I always look for things from creators I've backed before, because I know they'll be interesting or good. I try and look for pretty art. I'm a sucker for art. I'm always retweeting artists on Twitter. Um, there's always some exciting, cool new stuff by artists trying their first projects, so I always like to support those. Um, yeah, my sort of test is, am I going to actually get this to the table? Uh, and a lot of stuff, is going to be available later on itch or something. And so, last year there were people that I definitely planned on supporting that I didn't end up backing because they'd already overfunded, and I knew I was going to get them later, and I did. So, it's going to be the same thing again this year. There's going to be plenty of projects that I want that I don't back that I'm just going to buy as soon as they get released on itch or drive through or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
So
And do you usually, particularly during ZineQuest or in Zine projects, do you try to go for physical copies, or you are someone that is full PDF or in between?
so I tend to go for physical projects if I'm going to get them. Um, Half because the digital are always going to be available later, or most of the time are going to be available later. The print runs are usually limited. So if you don't get them during the Kickstarter, then you're probably not going to get them later, or much less likely to get them later. And also just for myself, I find that if I have like a zine sitting on my nightstand or something, I'm much more likely to read it. It's easy if you get 7 PDFs to forget about one of them. If you've got something like physically sitting there, like I'm much more likely to read it. So I try and mostly go for physical with ZineQuest, but there's a few PDF only I'm getting.
Yeah, I mean, it also depends a lot of, because I am now currently in Europe and you are in US, so there is also the shipping cost that sometimes we have to factor in. So sometimes it's not financially possible to get the physical one, even though sometimes they are, as you mentioned, gorgeous. I believe that most people in the indie scene are, they love that art and that aspect of trying to do something different that is not already established in the market. And apart from ZineQuest, like which are the actually the systems that you are playing that are not the most known ones? I mean, in the indie scene, we have some projects that are more towards long-term campaigns. More, some of them are really focused on one-shots and so on. What games are you playing recently, or are you being able to play something with pandemic and everything?
Yeah, definitely. I've actually I can't say I've played more than I did previously, but I play pretty consistently now. Um, there's when you have local groups, you tend to, schedules clash and collide, and with online groups, you can sort of play with anyone anywhere. It cuts down those barriers. So I have between 3 and 4 regular groups. Some of them are on like hiatus right now, but right now, what are my big games? We're playing the Die RPG, which is in beta. It's freely available. It's based on Kieran Gillen's comic book. It's How do I describe it? It's It Part 2 meets Narnia, I think someone said. You basically you play you make a group of kids who played probably D&D, but some RPG as kids. And then you decide you sort of pull out through a bunch of questions in session 0 their problems, their troubles, sort of their outlook on life, and then you create them 10-20 years later as adults meeting again after a long time apart, and that lets you sort of react to sort of the kids and their dreams and their hopes and what actually happened to them, and then those adults get sucked into a fantasy world. And so you sort of have these layers of character creation. So I find, like, with a lot of particularly OSR games, but indie games too, I don't really know who my character is until I have to make a choice and play, right? Like you kind of have an idea how you're going to roll them, but once you're forced to make a choice, you really know, like, what happens when their back's against a wall. And what I found was with Die, because you make the kid and then you make the adult, the choice you normally look for in play actually happens during character creation, because you've already judged what you thought of the kid's dreams, right, and hopes, and how they end up becoming adults. And so you sort of already know when you hit play, and so everyone has distinct ideas on how they want to play their characters, and all of them have different issues, and sort of the friction between those characters is really what runs play. So that's a really fun game that I'm playing right now. Another one I'm playing, Cult. We just started. We finished a very long campaign of the Veil. It was like 7 months, I want to say 8 months. I guess it's not a super long campaign. Some people go for years, but for us, we tend to play a lot of new stuff and a lot of shorter campaigns, and so that just ended, and we're playing uh, uh, similar to Die, actually, sort of a family coming back together, 4 siblings in this house of 1,000 doors. It's sort of a large haunted house set in the Yucatan Peninsula. And so we just had our session 1. It went really well. Some really good players, some very interesting characters. So we're playing that, and then my other groups sort of are on one-shot mode right now. I just played Lady Blackbird for the first time. I'd never played before. I know that's been on a lot of people's, like, I can't believe you haven't played that list in my indie friends. And then the other group, we last played Alice is Missing, but we kind of go back and forth with some things. So yeah, I'm getting in a lot of different stuff right
Yeah, I
now.
mean, you are making quite the round with a lot of different systems, and uh, I like to explore some systems in indie because sometimes they have mechanics that are not common to have, and then they allow you to explore, like you said. You usually, when you play, you had a way of going that you discover your character as you play, but then if you have some mechanics that in kind of way help you to flesh out the character before starting play, it will be a different experience. And even some experiences with horror, they are getting more popular, I would say, in the indie scene with Mark Borg and some other ones that make people try to play some systems that are different, and even play more systems, like, because some systems they are really rule light, and you just need to sit down and actually you can learn to play at the table with the group at the same time. And do you have like preferences with in respect to D6, pool die, pool die D20, something like that, or you are
Um, I,
always?
I'm all over the place. I like a lot of different things. I like seeing old systems used in new ways. I love seeing new ways of doing things. If we're talking OSR play, my favorite's probably Black Hack, just because it's very simple, very elegant, not a lot of stuff around it. I know a lot of people really love subsystems. I tend to like things a little bit more focused. Uh, but yeah, I'm always happy to try new things. I've run a lot of Morkborg as well. I had a lot of fun with that. Kind of the army of darkness of RPGs. uh, yeah, I don't know. I like a ton of stuff. It's tough for me to settle on one thing.
Yeah, and how did you end up going towards indie system? Did you already started playing on more in the indie scene, or did you start with some famous game and then you end up transitioning? Like, how is like your origin story going into some trying some indies?
Oh God, my origin story. Well, I started a long while ago with D&D second edition with Palladium Robotech were sort of like my starting two games. And then I started with third edition D&D. Spent a lot of time with Pathfinder. You play sort of the big system for a decade, you get very bored of it. um, and so I started trying new things, and I found a bunch of weird indie stuff, Fiasco, Shovel Here, Roach, all sorts of small stuff. And it didn't really click with me at the time. And then I found the OSR blog scene, and I fell in love. And I Patrick's old posts, I think, were he wrote something called the Nightmare Sea. He wrote like this big poem about a setting, and I was like, oh, that's so incredible. No one else is doing this. Um, yeah, I really got hooked on the OSR scene, and then so that was sort of the place I spent the most time for a few years. I'd play other stuff too, but that was sort of my focus. And then I joined the Gauntlet a couple years ago. Around the time I was an Ennies judge for 2 years, so I was gonna play like a ton of stuff anyways, and I joined in with the Gauntlet, and that's much more. They have some OSR stuff too, which is what grabbed me, but they also have a ton of indie things, and so I started playing a lot more indie stuff again for the first time in a few years, and now my groups just sort of latch on to whatever they're in the mood for. So
Yeah, and I guess like with the resurgence, not it we are having more games released right now, and it's much easier to get games with itch.io and that are very most of things are much more experimental, yeah, experimenting different stuff. And okay, we have still some stuff to in drive through as well, but I would say that itch is something that is really just trying to push the barrier of the games that we have available right now. So it made easier to try different games, because before, in the age of paper, it was like, how did the heck do you put your hand on a different system and try to play it? So uh, are you still involved with Annie's and something and the prize, or now you are just moving away? And
so the last year was my second year as a judge, and they have a 2-year limit, and I wanted to do my own things anyways. I have my own projects I want to work on. Anybody who reads RPGs long enough wants to make their own stuff, right? So I wanted to get into that space, the cool part about being an NES judge is you get to read a very large swath of like what's available. I think last year there were like 500 something submissions. Uh, but you don't get to talk about a lot of them publicly. You're under a non-disclosure agreement. You really, they don't mind if you talk positively about a few things once the awards come around, but really, you're talking to 4 other people, and keeping your mouth shut for 2 years on what games are exciting you is tough for someone like me. So yeah, I don't know. I'm off to do new and exciting things, I guess.
yeah, and do you have any project that you want to talk about right now, like, or they are still in the drawing board? How?
I'm working on a fairy tale game based off of the same system as Spire and Heart. Uh, it's very not available for public view yet. I've shown some people some art that's been coming through of a great artist who's involved. And I've been working on some interesting mechanics. I hired a linguist to make a language for it. It's going to have some like true name stuff going around with a real language that's been made for it. So there's interesting stuff, but it's not quite available for playtest yet.
Yeah, no problem. I mean, we start like we find out that that moment that we are creating, we're excited about it, but we still know that it's not ready to open to the world, so it's still our little baby. So I totally get that. And going back to ZineQuest, so we talked about that probably this year will be much bigger than last year. And I saw that someone mentioned something about ZineQuest going out, or they are trying to make like ZineQuest outside itch.io as well. Do you have anything to out of Kickstarter actually, like they doing ZineQuest in itch.io or something? Do you have anything to talk about that? Have you seen anything or?
I've seen one person doing something on itch, so I don't think it's. I mean, so ZineQuest was started by Kickstarter, right? It was an in-house project, and sort of the I think the reason why it funds so large and there's such a high percentage of success is because Kickstarter is behind it. It's free advertising, right? You go on to Kickstarter right now, and at the top is a banner that says ZineQuest, right? If you go into games, you see tons of projects, and all of them say the same word, and so you sort of, it makes people ask, what is this? Um, and there's also like tons of people obviously in our circle on Twitter, but there's a lot more people just out there who are like, what is this thing? And it's a centralized location. There could very well be large pushes in the future, in which case it's going to be tough to track. Kickstarter is not the easiest website to sort of like go hunting for things. It's one of the reasons I ended up starting the Excel sheet and all the rest. Um, but itch is very hard to search. And so I think if something started on itch and it wasn't supported by itch, it would be very difficult to find everything going on. Which isn't to say that it can't be done. But I would sort of see what happens before I try and get too far into there. I still remember somebody had to make a special thing to manage all the racial justice bundle, just the tabletop stuff. I still remember when that came out. It was tough to navigate, and I bought that, right? So yeah, I maybe in the future I could see it happening, but I'm not sure you would get the same benefits financially, just because you wouldn't get the same number of eyes. And for my part, doing tracking, it would be much more difficult. But we'll see. A lot's changed in the last 2 years, so I'm sure in another 2 to 3 years things could, be completely different again.
Yeah, I totally on board because actually the first year I was completely unaware that it existed. Last year I saw it, but when I saw it, it was already like late February. And then this year I was already expecting for it, so I was tracking. So a lot of stuff is changing. It's getting bigger. It's nice that we have Kickstarter trying to be behind that kind of experience in a way, to try and put different people to publish and to have projects and to fund. Because as you said, it's kind of free advertising because Kickstarter has a huge reach, and probably most of these people, they wouldn't be able to fund these projects if they try to release in only by their own or in any other moment. So,
Absolutely, and I think the person who started it inside was Luke Crane. Works with him. He made Burning Wheel famously, and Torchbearer. He works for Kickstarter, so he started ZineQuest. That was sort of his baby. I don't know if he's moved to a different area or he's been promoted, but he's no longer directly in charge. The new person, I'm blanking on her name. I'm sure you can look it up. But she's done a great job making sure it's kept going with him no longer pushing it directly. So yeah, it's nice to see a large company give support to a very small industry. So
yeah, completely, because I saw that as we mentioned, the scene, it is getting bigger. However, it's still sometimes it's difficult to find everything, as you said, going by your own into each or drive through and searching for something that you don't even know that exists is not that easy. Like just dropping some words in the search bar and trying to find something that appeals to you, it's not the easiest one. So having Kickstarter, you just click in the banner and then you have at least a list of everything that is going on. It's something that helps. and even more with your blog, like you have a list of everything, you have a list of the most funded ones and how many we have. So for me, it was, I found out about some Kickstarters, about some ZineQuest projects by your blog as well that I ended up backing because they were really, I wasn't aware that they existed, but once I saw them, they clicked everything for me. So I believe that more people are also finding it useful, and I am really glad that you started with that.
Yeah, I really
Uh,
appreciate that.
we are probably around 30 minutes right now. So do you have anything more that you want to talk about ZineQuest, about indies, or about what you have been on lately? So
That's ZineQuest has sort of been eating my brain for the last couple weeks, so yeah, I don't know. That's been basically everything.
actually, I saw that you also put a call if anyone wants to contribute, or mutuals that know you, that if they want to contribute to some projects of ZineQuest that they like or something to the blog as well.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, I just last year I did a bunch of here's some cool things to check out, but this year it's just too fast for me to do that as well as other things. And last year I was a lot smaller. I had probably half as many Twitter followers and a lot less people, I guess, were looking at ZineQuest at the time. So this year it just feels a little weird for me to be the person saying check out these projects when I'm also the person with the list of all the projects. It just feels, I don't know, there's some weird ethical things in there. So I just figured I would offer the reason I mentioned mutuals or people who've known me for a while is just I can't pay for it. All my money's going to ZineQuest right now, among other things. And I don't really want to do much editing. So I just figured if I know somebody for a while, I don't have to do much work and I can trust they're gonna, post something that's not gonna throw me under the bus.
yeah,
uh,
actually, I checked the one of the I'm not sure if there were more than one already, but I saw one of the posts, and it was really informing, like different projects. Some of them were projects that I was already keeping an eye on, but some of them, as I mentioned, I was completely unaware because with 244, it's tough to read each one of them and see if they are the right match for you or not. So it was nice, and if more people are willing to help you, and with that, I am really looking forward to reading some more opinions, because choosing just by your own, going by every project, is basically impossible. So
Yeah, I mean, I think like, art's the easiest way for people to decide if they see something they like the art. But I really think that's one of the reasons why a good pitch is like still one of the best things you can do to get your Kickstarter noticed. Just a paragraph. This is what your players are doing. This is the setting or the theme or the context that you're doing it in, and this is what system I'm using. Um, some people love Forged in the Dark, right? And you can go if you go 6 paragraphs before you see it's a Forged in the Dark game. Well, you might not wait 6 paragraphs to before looking at something else. Whereas if you saw that in paragraph one, maybe this is your game. Um, Same with OSR stuff. Like I think like just being straightforward with what you're doing and what your project's about, and just getting to the point is like your best way of just grabbing people immediately. Um,
yeah, and do you have any other insight about like art and a pitch that it's clear of what you are trying to achieve? I guess basically it sums up, or
yeah, I mean, art's, in some sense it's subjective. Do different stuff. That's easy with ZineQuest. With bigger projects, I have a little more to say, but with ZineQuest, everybody's doing all sorts of different things. Yeah, I think a good page is just it's clear, it says what it's doing, what it's about. It tells you details, it doesn't try and hide things. I mean, some people can get away with that. Like Lacuna is from is a indie favorite from a long time ago, and it basically says nothing about the page, and it still hit like $10,000 or 4,000. I don't know. It hit some large amount of money for given that like you can read the page and not know what the game is about. But for most people who don't have like a reputation in a previous game out, being clear and just talking about what you're doing and what's in the zine, like is it monsters? Here's how many monsters. Here's a couple examples of monster art. Is it items? Here's an example. Here's how many items you're getting. Here's an example of one to see what you're doing. Here's an example layout page, right? Just when there's 300 projects that are interesting you, you gotta just tell people what they're getting. Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess some clear rewards. It's also something that it's very important because sometimes you read the rewards and you are not sure what you are getting when. So
Yeah, I think you can do like funny titles and things. Some people do, but I think just saying like at this level you get the PDF, at this level you get the PDF and the print, at this level you get the PDF, the print, and the art. I think a lot of people have taken to doing sort of like dashes and then like breakdowns of what's in each reward. And I think that's really useful for people. If you spend 15 minutes trying to figure out what reward does what, then you might not click and just go elsewhere. Yeah, being clear with information is always really good.
yeah. I mean, I guess that for me it was that. Thank you actually for being available and for the chat. And apart of that, I guess that's it. And thank you. And I'll keep an eye on your blog. The link will be in the description as well. So
Thanks, I appreciate it. It's been fun.
This was the video. If you like the video, like the video, share, subscribe. You know how internet works. Comment what you thought about the interview, what you thought about the news. If you have any new piece of information that you want to share, it's something that I'm looking for as well. And apart of that, I guess that's it. So, see ya!